fun to hit it. If you don't know, you all see this. It's Commissioner Weaver back about, what, 40 years ago? 30? It just gives me pleasure to hit this
Oh, he has
every
a
time.
beard on that one.
So,
Dark.
okay. It is the afternoon session of March 31st, and we're going to continue with our agency briefings. And first up is Sheriff DeWeese and team. And Sheriff, I up front apologize for the, though not necessary, I'm sure you're going to say, your work schedule one. I appreciate the patience as we went a little bit long this morning, but look forward to hear what you have to say.
Okay. We came over a little early just to see, and I appreciate you guys jumping back on the bench. I know you didn't take a lunch break, or you took a very quick lunch break, so I appreciate you getting us in at 1:30. Mrs. McDonald's here. She's no stranger to you guys. She's with my staff, and then Sergeant Brandon Holland is here from the FMP. So I'm making two requests. One is a capital request to move a project, and the other one is a request over top of my recommended budget. So I'll start with the capital project first. I'm asking that a capital project, which is our law enforcement headquarters, be moved up along with any operating impacts associated with it. And I'll give you a little bit of history about the capital project. It is our law enforcement headquarters. This project has been approved and is on the schedule to be built with the design starting in 2025, FY 2025, and construction in FY 26 with occupancy in FY 28. And I'm asking for the project to be moved up to design in FY 23, build in FY 24, and make it operational FY 26. So this past year, I had conversations with the governor and our delegation to Annapolis about putting money in the governor's operating the budget to support this project. During this current legislative session in Annapolis, Governor Hogan allocated $3 million to jumpstart this program. And I believe the delegation got concurrence from you guys. I don't think this is new news to you. I believe they came to you with it, and there was concurrence with making the request to the governor. As of now, it looks like the money will remain and hasn't been cut by the full legislature, but we won't know until April 11th when legislature is over. The current project is slated to be built on the grounds adjacent to where our current pretrial release is located. You guys may recognize that as the old roadway building. The property has the capacity to hold the building that we're looking to construct, including parking, which has been a big issue over in that area, but parking is not an issue with the location that we're looking to construct this building. No additional homes or businesses need to be purchased. This building can be started as soon as possible. What Ms. McDonald has is the concept on the PowerPoint and then an overlay of where that building would sit. And if you see the blue LE building, directly to the left of that is where the roadway building is at, which is where our pretrial release is at.
It's right in the top left.
So that's where it would be built. I've met with Eric Burdine and John Bowers, I believe John's behind me, on several occasions to go over the project site, and they have the capacity to work on this project if you choose to up the timeline. Building this location would consolidate our patrol division, which is housed underneath the detention center, the office of the sheriff, which is at the historic jail, criminal investigations, property and evidence, crime scene investigators, our digital forensic analysts, along with our crime analysts, all of which are in the basement of the public library in Hampstead. Also, over the past several weeks, over the past several years, we've worked with Mans Woodward on project needs and design for other locations that were potential spots to relocate our headquarters. You guys know that over the years, the previous board, we've moved and looked at different locations. Mans Woodward has come in on an RFP that was bid and looked at project designs and looked at needs for our office. We are told by Maureen in procurement, she believes that we can continue with Mans Woodward to finalize the program needs and go right into design if you choose to move this project up, which would save us months of RFP and time. Ms. McDonald has the last slide, and I believe Mr. Zaleski will chime in if need be on the impact if it's moved up with bond money.
And also, Commissioners, we did speak with the architect as well as procurement and everything, that they're able to have the capacity if you choose to move the project forward as well. That they're able to work on that in FY23. to pick back up where the project left off several years ago from the architect. So we put a call into them to make sure they could handle that as well and work with procurement, just to kind of check all those bases.
So the last slide has some numbers that are of interest.
So currently, this is where our understanding is of the project, where it is budgeted at a overall high level. You'll see FY '23, the 6 million, that is the 3 million that is slated from the state, and then the match that the county puts in. The remaining portion of the design and site work phase is still in '25, and then the build is in '21-9. So those are where the project funds are budgeted currently. And then, basically, again, at a high level, commissioners, we're just asking to move the remaining site work funding up and any operating impacts to go with the project into FY '23, and then move the build phase up into '24. So again, just at a high level, overall projects, just to kind of give you a snapshot of where it currently sits in the capital budget and what we're asking to do.
Excuse me if I missed it and it was mentioned earlier. Does the implementation of the body worn cameras affect this in any way? Does that accelerate your need in any way?
No.
Okay.
We had always planned on putting that at the space at North Carroll High School. And in fact, we were able to secure the $1.5 million from Congress for that, which will kick in positions and some capital funding to build out space at North Carroll High School so that we can implement that program. And that'll be ASAP.
So
as soon as
that's
we
already
get that.
covered.
Yeah, so I mean,
That's
this could be potentially FY '26, so it would be several years down the road before we'd even see this. So that's all covered. You guys have already, I don't even really, won't come back to you for that, other than to accept that grant award.
Right. Is the major reason of this due to expectation of cost increase?
Yeah,
I mean,
it
that
is,
the
and John's
bottom line?
behind me, and this is one thing that, that we believe that if it's constructed on the heels of the state's attorney's office or concurrently, consecutively, however you want to do it, it would save time, energy, and money. Primarily, I believe, on some of the site work that needs to be done with getting the utilities and some of the infrastructure work that needs to be done there.
Weren't we also talking about options of what this law enforcement facility or complex would look like to include other emergency management?
Yeah, so if we go back a couple of slides, you'll see a concept. So that below is a concept of other sites that are on, so the far, in this area is where the state attorney's office is at, where that's gonna be built at. The far right-hand side, all the way at the end of Greenwood where Manchester Avenue's at, like you're going to the rear of the old Hess station, is the future site of the detention center. There's parking there, and then there's future site of another building that could be placed there. Now, mind you, if you look at the top slide, the overlay, there are still businesses that are sitting there, Westminster Transmission and Staley's Auto Body.
Right.
And those are issues. I believe the county owns
What's in yellow?
everything else that's in yellow.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Relatively straightforward. Okay.
I just want to mention that people need to know that the headquarters you're presently in, the building was built in 1838, I believe.
It's 185 years old. I mean, we've gotten 4 lifetimes out of that building, albeit it's a cool building. It really is a neat place, and
It has many challenges for you.
yeah, I mean, I would use the example of Colonel Hart having to duck when he goes through bathroom doors, but he would have to do that regardless of what building I built. But if you walk through there, it is, all of us pretty much have to duck just to get into the bathroom. It's a unique building. There's no two ways about it. It's just simply not
And I
a
also
police
know with the
organization.
HVAC systems, the walls
Yeah.
aren't set up for it, and that's a nightmare for you guys to have. Also, the detention center across the street was built in what, 1970?
In different segments, it was born or built. 70, late 90s. There was an addition. So there's been 3 different additions, I believe, to that building. So it's kind of a Franken jail, for lack of better words. It's been built in pieces, and at times it shows because sometimes it leaks in different areas that specifically where they were joined, the areas where they were joined, and so. I know that that's a building that we've got to talk about. This board won't talk about it this year, obviously, but in future, the future board's going to have to talk about that building and what what needs to take place there.
I
but
just
this-
want to mention that, to put it in
Yeah.
perspective, that you guys have been extremely patient.
Yeah, we have, but logistically, I think it's time to look at this place and build something that's modern, and it does give back the basement of the library, which I know they want. And then pretrial release, which is an old roadway building, would come down, and I did listen to you guys the other day talk about the jail and the concept of using an independent contractor to come in there. It is a unique building, and I'm very cognizant of the fact if we build something new, whether it's the State Attorney's Office or Sheriff's Patrol, FMD facilities, it's got to come in and maintain that building, and I know that that's very difficult. So if I can decommission something else that they don't have to take care of, then it would be worth putting those things in, and I can consolidate a lot of our resources into one location.
Thank
So,
you.
All right. Anything else?
Anything else?
So I'll move on to the next request. This is a request that's above what our recommended budget that came from the county is. And so just to give you a little bit of history in making this request, last year we started down a path to target the 50th percentile of salaries for the region in law enforcement and corrections. We looked at Howard County, Baltimore County, Frederick County, Harford County, St. Mary's County, Charles County, and Washington counties to create the 50th percentile. I'm making an additional request of $2.95 million to complete getting our staff to the 50th percentile. In support of my request, I'll highlight a couple of areas of concern that affects the future of my office and public safety in this county, and I'll start with our recruiting efforts. Currently, in law enforcement, I have 4 vacancies. I'm expecting an additional opening with a potential retirement in late spring. In corrections, I currently have 13 vacancies. In January, I started recruiting for a September 2022 academy class. We got 12 applications for that class. We also put feelers out on who would be attracted to this organization through lateral transfers, certified officers from other departments. We got 8 potential candidates, a total of 20 candidates for 5 openings. And if history is true, we may see 2 or 3 of those candidates make it through our entire process. Now, just to give you some historical data on recruiting efforts. If you remember, the previous board funded SROs in 2018 and granted my office an additional 14 positions. That year, we had 170 applicants for those positions. In 2019, we had 168 applicants for positions. In 2020, 125, and in 2021, 46. And you can see the trend going down. Corrections is completely different. It stays open constantly. I constantly have to keep that window open so that I can test and put people into the jail because I'm so woefully down in that facility. Right now, I only have 4 people that are in the hopper to process, and I'm hoping that I can get 1 or 2 out of that because of the stringency and the policy and the backgrounds and polygraphs that they have to go through in order to get here. And for all of the jail for 2020 and 2021, I had 135 applicants, and we hired a total of 8 out of those applicants. So it's consistent across the board. It usually stays between 8 and 10% is the attrition when we look at how many applicants we get and go through in order to get to that point. I often get questions about, what is your attrition rate? How many people are you losing? And I will be honest, I have not had much at all in 2021 leave over the last year, but if we look at attrition and make changes as it happens, it's too late. It takes us a year to get someone hired, trained, and productive. What we did with salaries last year and what I'm asking for this year should keep our attrition rate to just regular retirements, not people moving to other organizations, although I did have one of my deputies resign yesterday and will leave the business altogether and go into her family business. Crime in Carroll County in 2021 decreased by 9.6% in comparison to 2020. And crime was already decreasing for the past several years. It's been in a downward trend. My office has remained proactive, even with everything we've been faced with, calls for defunding and reforming police. We responded to just under 65,000 calls for service in 2021. We made 22,000 traffic stops in 2021, which are up slightly from the years past. We made 1,200 criminal arrests and arrested 266 drivers that were under the influence. Our job is to be proactive, not reactive. We must engage criminal activity and poor driving to stop crime and crashes in order to keep our county safe. Anything else is unacceptable. I have deputies that have been trained well and have a wide variety of skills to keep our county safe. Just 2 weeks ago, on March 17th, Deputy Nick Sherman made a traffic stop on Route 140 in Westminster. After a canine scan, the drugs and gun you see on the screen were seized. The defendant is a known drug trafficker from Baltimore and was stopped leaving a local hotel. He's a violent individual, and when stopped by Deputy Sherman, the suspect knew there was a high likelihood he was going back to jail. My deputy had no idea what was in the car or who he was dealing with when he made that seemingly innocent traffic stop. We are very fortunate that the stop went the way that it did. Just last week, we participated in a large-scale drug operation including state and federal law enforcement. We executed 12 search warrants and concluded a lengthy case that was designed to target high-level drug dealers in Westminster. We made several arrests in this case, and we have several more to make for anybody that's watching this. Deputy Steve Rager, who works as a DEA diversion detective in my office assigned to the DEA, worked a case in 2021 in the southwest part of Carroll County that yielded, which at the time was the largest seizure of fentanyl on the East Coast. 2 kilos of fentanyl, $300,000 in assets, and over 16,000 pressed pills were seized that were due to be shipped throughout the United States. In November 21, investigators from my office began investigating a homicide off Woodbine Road with very little information to work with on the victim and potential suspects. After 2 months of putting together a very technical case, including cell phone data, other digital evidence, and physical surveillance, they brought 2 Prince George's County men to justice for murder. Our Police and Correctional Academy will graduate Law Enforcement Class 5 and Corrections Class 2 tomorrow. Our Academy and Training Division is one of our hallmark accomplishments over the past several years. We've seen other agencies around the state send their new recruits to us for training because of the quality they receive. When our class graduates tomorrow, we will have graduated 98 law enforcement officers from 20 agencies in Maryland, including the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, and 17 correctional deputies from Carroll County Sheriff's Office Detention Center. Now, I could go on and on, from our SRO program to our jail operations and dedicated and brave men and women that work there. I'm highlighting these cases because the bravery and expertise of these deputies work throughout my office, not only in law enforcement, but in our jail. We can't afford, based on the recruiting numbers I mentioned, to see any of these deputies leave for greener pasture. We need to keep them here and have them work for our office. We need them to be proactive at all levels. This county has a quality and professional primary law enforcement and correctional institution. We are on the cusp of being one of the premier law enforcement agencies in the entire country. An office that people will no longer drive past to get to their jobs in Baltimore, Howard, or Montgomery counties, but an office for those who want to serve will say, I'm applying to the Carroll County Sheriff's Office. I hope I'm good enough to get in. With that, I'll turn this over to Sergeant Holland. He has a couple brief comments, and Ms. McDonald will go through one other slide to explain to you the salaries and where we're at in comparison.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The Sheriff threw a lot of information at you, so I will be pretty quick. If we as police officers don't follow up with investigations or see them through in their entirety to full closure, criminals run free on our county streets. If correctional deputies stop halfway through their medication rounds, inmates housed in our facility get sick and battle severe illnesses. A few years ago, we requested funding for a disability retirement system equivalent to the industry standard. We received half of what we needed. Last year, you started a commitment to get the Sheriff's Office salaries to the 50th percentile, but only funded half of what the Sheriff requested. Please finish this project that you agreed to and started last fiscal year. The sense of urgency needs to be recognized with the number of applicants diminishing and the law enforcement profession being less and less appealing to people entering the workforce. The Sheriff's requesting the second half of the funding needed to make us comparable to other agencies that have the same responsibilities as us at the Sheriff's Office.
So, Commissioners, just I'm gonna take a minute of your time. You may be asking, well, the funding that you added into our budget last year, what did that actually do? So you wanna read this from the bottom up. Nope, where did it go? Okay. As an example, we took the law enforcement deputy position and the correctional deputy position, but the comparisons are similar through all of the ranks. So the purple, why does it keep going back? The purple line is where we started with the salaries at the various years of service last year. Sheriff DeWeese came and asked for the 4.5.
Got gremlins.
It must be. So the two orange numbers, rows are where the salaries went to with the 2 million that was awarded and budgeted last year. And then this past spring with the additional, must be, I have no idea what it's doing.
It swam in the back, I think it's messing with it.
The second orange line above it is where the salaries went to with the funding, for the 9.5 pay periods for the rest of this fiscal year. I'm gonna be quicker, obviously. The green lines at the top are the percentile amounts for last spring and then this spring, because we look at re-benchmarking every year. So you can see while, we're not, every year, last year it got us much closer. So if you look at the 20-year from 67 to 80 and then to almost 83, but that's still away from the percentiles. You also notice the ranges still continue. So looking at this funding, and yes, it is a lot of money, this is what addresses the compression and retention that Sheriff DeWeese has talked about. So by doing this, we're able to continue to get everything at the 20-year and the base out to the 50th percentile. Because what happens is those ranges need to continue to go upward, and that is where the cost comes from. And that is where it aids with retention. For the hiring, then we've gotten, for both, we've been able to get the starting salaries very close. So the difference is not that much, which is great. A little more work to do on that, but you can see as the differences escalate out through the time. And so what we've done is put together numbers where taking the money that we've requested would be applied to the pay plans. I guess I'm done with that slide. We would apply that out through to get that, to target out to that 50th percentile range at the base and at the 20-year for all the ranks.
What questions do you have? And we work closely with Heidi as our analyst, and we work closely with her all year. And Heidi looks at these numbers. She doesn't advocate one way or the other, but she confirms what we're doing and that they are correct and they're accurate. So, but we work closely with her throughout the year. If you have any questions, feel free.
That slide that you couldn't keep up, is there a way to get that in like a hard copy?
Yes.
So, yeah, I'd like to see that.
Absolutely.
The 2.95 million is ongoing,
Correct.
but it increases incrementally over time. Because the way you have it written, it just says for FY '23, 2.95, dollars to continue to maintain.
Correct.
But we
Yeah,
do
it is
have-
one-time money. It would certainly go, obviously every year,
Yeah,
but
right.
it would go up. We're not. I mean, honestly, you can just make it 2.95 million and not give anything next year or add anything to the overall salary number, but,
So I believe with budget management, then they take what would happen and forecast out the remaining out years based on what the new money would be.
Yes, as things stand, you have 4% annual increase in
Right.
salaries built in, that we would apply that.
But just because we do have some one-time money, if we gave the 2.9 this time as one time, well, never, I guess that's not
Can't
really
do
gonna
that.
be helpful. Never
It's gotta
mind.
be ongoing.
can you do that for my building, Dennis? I mean, that would be cool.
Yeah,
And
that
that's
would
for-
be
that's for
helpful,
bricks and
never
mortar.
mind.
What do we
So-
have scheduled right now for,
4%.
So you already
4%.
gave you front-loaded the 4%, all right? And that was dispersed equally amongst everybody in the office, similar to what you guys did here with the county government.
and this would increase it to what percent?
This would get, at the base and at the 20-year for all of the ranks, up through to the 50th percentile. So then what you're doing is we're basically adjusting the structure to where it needs to be to be managed and sustained for the future.
But outside the 50th percentile, what percent would be given to?
It would vary
It
amongst
varies.
where we're
So-
at with
yeah,
the
so from-
separation.
Yeah, so from a range.
Right, it could be,
So if you notice the law enforcement side, the difference is greater. So what we're looking to do is take the funding that's needed to adjust the structures. So when you look at pay plans, you have compression in two areas, between ranks and between steps.
Right.
So by doing this, in order to calculate that amount to get to the 50th, it takes a combination of adjusting the longevity steps to where they need to be and then adjusting the ranks. So by doing kind of all of that, out and down, if you will, then that gets everything where it would fit.
so you're talking about, so the military would be a great example of why would you take on a job as a colonel or a lieutenant colonel if there wasn't a separation in salary? So that's kind of what we look at is not only the promotions, what is the percentage between promotions, but what is, if someone stays in that rank and they get steps year 1 through 10 and then longevity steps, what is that percentage moving forward up to the period where it would be their final step, and then 3 years later they would retire, gaining the highest 3 years. So depending on where the furthest separation is, it could be 10%, it could be 20%. I don't know at this point what the specific range would be until we filter that in each rank.
Because, Brandon, you shared that we went halfway and we stopped.
Yes, sir.
That's that 50th percentile umbrella that you're looking at. Now I'm trying to figure out, okay, from that 50th percentile, you know, overall, what are the percentages in the middle of it? So if we weren't able to do everything, and we went to a certain point, where would, what would it get to?
Well, I
And
think.
I know I'm not saying it very clearly.
No, it's very difficult because it is not one set combination.
Right.
So in past years, so for example, with the 4% funding, that money, and I'll hold one up with the pay plan. Typically your pay plans, this is one position
Right.
with all the ranks. The money gets added to the top, it goes through in a waterfall
Right.
effect.
Yep.
It doesn't really widen the ranges or bands of the pay plan. That's where you get compression out here. But it does add money all the way through when people do get pay increases. When you take something like this, it depends on the amount. So for example, with the 2 million last year, we basically had to back into where was the best place to accomplish the most with the 2 million. So it's literally taking these pay plans, and I spend a lot of time we give different scenarios. Well, what if
Yeah.
we put this here, we
Right.
widened this, we
Right.
shrunk this, we did this, we did this. And where does that 2 million best fit? So again, it would depend on the amount.
Right.
And where does it best get applied? So it does take kind of, I hate to say making pizza dough, but you're stretching the pay plan out,
Yeah.
which addresses compression and down. And it just depends which way accomplishes. It depends. It is not cookie cutter, and it is not an equal attempt to apply the funding.
I think what you're asking is, if I gave you $1 million, would it be at 35%?
And
Would it be at
it's-
40%? And I don't think it's that easy to.
It's not that
to
easy.
give you that
But I'm
answer.
thinking there should be a range, like
It
20
could
to
be.
35.
I mean, we could
And that's
certainly-
kind of what I'm thinking. And then the last dollars that was received was able to increase the salaries by what?
So for example, if you look here at this row, if I can keep it here, on the deputy, law enforcement deputy, the starting salary was 46, it went up
Right.
to 50, but then if the range actually expanded, so from 46 to 67, not even a $20,000 band width, it went then from 50 to 30. So we were able to add 10,000 to that rank, if you will, from when you're hired out to master deputy for your career. So if no one got promoted, instead of having 20,000, we were able to expand it and start addressing the compression out to a range of 30, from 46 to 67 to 50 to 80. So that's what that did. On the corrections, 39 was the starting. We were able to bump it up over 40. So again, that was about a $20,000 range from 39 to 59. Then you went from 40 to 67. So we were able to expand that range about 7,000 or 8,000. So it does both. It gets, so in that case, the funding addressed the starting salaries and out to the 20.
Which
We-
was significant.
It was. But that's what that money, and then equivalent increases through the other ranks, corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, et cetera. So what happens is when we first started, we were locked into a set amount of funding for 3 years. So in order to back into that money, the percentages between the steps were very small, and which is why you only had like a $20,000 range. So if a deputy was hired at X number of dollars, if they never got to a competitive promotion,
Right.
and if no money was ever added, their salary would increase $20,000 over 25 years.
Right.
So when you look at any other agencies, they aren't continuing to change the structure. They've done all of that in past years. They've established the structure. So when they do pay raises, they're not changing the percentages between ranks. I'm not saying they don't do a wholesale change once in a blue moon, but they're adding money to their pay plans that does the waterfall effect to give everyone pay raises, because they've been through that and they've established the pay plans that actually function for them, that you don't have to keep adjusting the structure, if that makes sense. We're at that point where we haven't really ever been able to adjust the structure from where we were able to start. So last year was one of the most significant times where we were able to start adjusting that, and that's where it got partway.
Okay.
You're trying to establish a foundation for it.
Yes. So the hope is long-term, and going through, once it would be set, that the annual 4% that's budgeted, that for the most part would do what it needs to do and continue to fund non-competitive promotions and steps.
And that little bit of money that might be left over could
Over.
help us adjust when we study
if
the
it's-
50th percentile
yes.
regionally based on the agencies to get our folks where they need to be to stay consistent. What we've always had a habit of doing is just fighting to catch up, and not come in with a real plan saying this is where we need to be. And it's been a constant struggle. And I think our recruiting numbers really do talk to that it's been difficult to hold on to people and keep them.
But yeah, that is not something that we would then continue to ask for funding down the road to continue to adjust the structure. The goal is to get it there and then be able to maintain and manage that.
It's kind of like what we faced earlier with the water and sewer system, that you gotta get up to par, so to speak, or you keep falling behind every year subsequently after that.
Eric, I gotta be honest, I never thought I'd be compared to a water and sewer system, but if you want to, then
The
if that makes it work
finances
for you, I'm
are
fine with that,
No,
so.
I don't wanna get pulled over for us to go 5 miles over the speed limit. By the way, Sheriff, I wanna commend you and your staff for the work you've done in my district. And when you mentioned the fentanyl seizure, everyone here knows I've lost a daughter 5 years ago to fentanyl. So what you guys do saves an untold amount of lives that we don't even realize how many have been saved by what you do. And I commend you all on what you do. Not everyone can do what you do, especially the men and women over at the detention center. You all have a psychological aspect to your job that not everyone's cut out for it. And I commend Sergeant Holland for the training you give people going down there. I've seen firsthand the stress that you guys get under, and you guys weed them out to make sure that we have the top officers in law enforcement here, and I commend you on it.
Listen, this is my second board. This is my 8th year doing this. I've seen Steve and Dick and Dennis for 8 years. We're all tired of looking at each other, I know that, but the two of you have been here for the last 4 years. I'd like to say it's been a pleasure, but it really has been, I think, the right way to do business, to come in here and open everything up for transparency. This is what we need, this is what we're doing. We may have privately argued about things, but at the end of the day, this board always, and I say it publicly, and I'll say it until I'm done doing this, has always looked at public safety, regardless of whether it's my office, the detention center, firefighters, 911, everybody. They get that it's the primary responsibility to keep people safe, and it's been a unique 8 years. I can tell you that. So
I think the next board, you should take them over your office and tease them all.
yeah.
Any other discussion, conversation? Appreciate the time,
Appreciate it,
appreciate the details.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, Carroll County Volunteer Emergency Services Association.
They're outside.
Outside? Yeah, okay.
There's too many people. If we get infected,
Can we leave?
we have room limits here.
Can we leave?
We were out of money about 6 hours ago.
I thought we got rid of you.
I'm not doing any talking, I'm just gonna
Okay,
listen.
thank goodness.
You wanna s-
I got a meeting at 7. I wanna make sure I'm out of here.
Yeah,
by
I'm
then.
not saying a word, thus asked.
Who wants to put money on that?
I'm working for them.
Okay. EMS 24/7 increase.
Okay. So, this isn't, oh, I'm sorry, I'm Mary Carol Stifler, the treasurer for CCB, so.
Okay.
The EMS 24/7, and, there's the one following it, EVOD, which is Emergency Vehicle Operator Driver increase. I'll talk about them together because they really kind of go hand in hand. The request is approximately 15% of the existing budget, and the intent of it is to increase our rates to be able to not only attract but retain EMTs and paramedics, as well as emergency vehicle operators, which is the second request. Our current pay rates are so low that when you do a comparison to the minimum wage, now going to $15, the certifications and the level of standards that we require, people are not very enticed to come here and work, let alone the hours and the conditions under which sometimes they're exposed to. So the intent of this funding would be to give our member companies that additional funding, allowing them to increase and attract, retain those personnel. The consequences of not being able to do so means a continuation of unstaffed stations at times and the risk of not being able to serve our citizens.
If you click your button to change your slide.
If I click my button to change my slide? Okay. So yeah, the new rates are expected to go, to get a paramedic at $24 base, and EMTs raising them to $18 an hour base. EVOD, emergency vehicle operator drivers, would go up to 20. So
That's the totals. You can go to the next slide, it'll
Okay.
give you the breakdown.
I didn't do these slides, guys. So we were planned to only get a 3% increase, and actually what we're asking for is an additional 12. So the total would be 15%. Again, the rationale is clear. What I do want to emphasize here is that these amounts, this would be an ongoing request the way it's presented. These amounts are worst case scenario. They're based on the fact that if we were not to implement the paid system, this is what it would be across the existing 13 or 14 departments that get funding. Actually, all 14 get funding, but not all for EMS. And as those departments are as the paid staff is implemented through the county system, those funds would be reduced. So we would no longer be funding those stations. So these numbers are worst case scenario. Taylor and I have discussed that at the budget office, but we decided to present it this way as this is the maximum impact.
And essentially,
What's a
those funds would then be
training device?
transferred to the county for their process, for the.
What's a training device?
The training price,
We have,
Oh,
they're not there yet.
that's next,
They're
that's
not there
next.
yet.
Oh, sorry.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
She skipped
I
ahead.
clicked the slide by accident.
I was reading ahead.
Back, there you go.
He went back.
So I understand you want to do the base, which is, that's expected. What does this do to the fact that there are 13 different pay rates in the county?
So ideally, what we're looking at is standardizing that. Originally, when the program was put in 20 years ago, we opted for a base pay. Everybody was supposed to adhere to that. With simple supply and demand, we haven't been able to keep up with that. Stations that are busier, stations that have higher call volumes, they've had to increase salaries to even get people to apply. As I'm sure you are aware and have had the same challenges, and we are going to continue to have these challenges over this next phase in this transition from being volunteer EMS employees of the stations to county employees. We're going to continue to have that. So to kind of get everybody on the same page, we've given increases in this over the last 20 years, at 3%, at 2%, or 4%, whatever the county idea rate was. We didn't have a significant jump in any of these for longevities, for other taxes, for other things, but this is to try to bring all 13 departments that have these funds that are getting these personnel to get them at a base pay so that we're not continuing to steal and rob the employees from one station to another.
I mean, I think, you know, in addition, we know, we've talked about the fact that all the departments are having to supplement their funds, using fundraising money or other things in order to be able to really retain this personnel. So this kind of starts to alleviate a little bit of that burden as well, potentially.
Yeah, understood. I get all that. So you're gonna do more than base though if you would get these funds. You're gonna see that you're gonna see that those that are not making the base also get the increase, which
That-
continues the efforts of 13 different pay grades.
13 companies at the CC Visa meeting came together and unanimously said, if we get this increase, that they will make that the base pay across those 13 departments.
Okay.
And I requested
That's
it
where I was
for it to be a
going.
vote.
Okay.
The vote had to be unanimous for us to come to you today.
Okay.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here asking for it. So we have that on our end, that these companies have all agreed to that. Now, some people may already be above that.
Well, right.
And
I
stuff
get
like that.
But this would be the base for
Yes.
everybody.
So this would bring all the employees up to.
Excluding, of course, those based on what staffing we would do, excluding those, of course.
Right.
would-
And,
would-
you know, typically in July, we know that we're not hiring people come July for the county. So at some point over this next year, when they go to that funds that would be approved for the July budget, then would be transferred to the county as they take over those stations. So essentially, for those departments, you'd be giving more money to the county to fund that shortcomings, short.
And I guess once I guess we decide which of those plans we saw this morning that we're gonna go with, we could have a working number to, because you have to have that first.
You would have dollars
Then we
and
have a
cents.
working number to go with about how much this will cost and how much.
Taylor and I have what the impact by station is, so that would be easily
Okay.
presented, yes. Okay.
And one other caveat to that is we may be putting in an additional supplemental budget for the current 22 budget year for the fourth quarter to be able to go ahead and make these raises effective sooner than July 1st is one of the other anticipations, which if you go back a slide, if you hit back button, it shows it's about 206,000 or something, similar to what the county did for their employees to try to help, again, retain some of these people. Some of the departments have already moved in their departments to make these additional salaries so that they can continue to attract and retain the people that they have. And we understand that would be a supplemental, it's just this may be coming.
Bruce, are the EVOD salaries all over the map too?
I don't think they're as far around.
I don't know the range. Again,
Okay.
it's one of those things that we don't, and the fact is that they could have somebody that's worked there for a year or worked there for 10 years. You would expect that to be a little different because
Well,
the
right.
current employees are gonna, so, you know, it's hard to say what the actual,
Okay.
but
I was
this is,
I'm just curious. So, okay.
Okay.
click.
So the next one is, let's get over there. Sorry. 2 one-time requests. So the first one is for Reese, to purchase rescue equipment, for their squad. So they're looking for heavy-duty rescue equipment, what's it called? Struts, to equip onto their squad. This equipment really, with their reporting is that they have a high volume of traffic with tractor trailers and that kind of stuff. Obviously, we all know that 140 corridor, and that they feel that this equipment would better prepare them to answer the call if there were some kind of accident involving that type of equipment. I think there actually have been a few in the past year or two. It's a one-time cost of $44,000 for this equipment. To have put it into their operating budget would have overly inflated it. So we came in as a one-time cost. And I guess the real impact, if it weren't funded, is that we could be compromised in our ability to release effectively and quickly serve on a rescue, which could lead to death or non-reversible medical impacts to somebody involved in those kinds of accidents.
You know, a photo or description of what this equipment really is? It's ambiguous to me.
I don't have it. I don't know if they're looking at a particular model or vendor or anything. I don't have that information. I just know that cars are fairly easy. All of our rescue equipment that we have, our hydraulic tools, our struts are rated for cars. When you start to get into tractor trailers, they go up to 80,000 pounds. They're made out of much stronger metal.
So is it like the Jaws of Life system?
It's more like for stabilizing it if it's rolled over on its side. So it's the struts specifically, and I don't know exactly what, I know one of the things was struts, but they are long, essentially long poles or boards, if you will, but they're made out of metal.
I can visualize
for,
that and see what you're getting at.
making the vehicle so that it can't roll over or can't shift.
Do we
Or-
have, pardon me, do we have any of those, any of that equipment at any of the other facilities in the
Some
county?
of the departments have them, depending on if they have squads, and also the ATR team has them for collapse and trench. But a lot of times now, the different manufacturers are only rated for either vehicle or trench or building collapse. So the one vendor that they had, the ART struts, have gone out of business. So now you have to go Paratech, you have to go some other brand names, and they don't necessarily rate things across all disciplines like that.
And
So
I realize how important ratings are, because the last thing you want is to
Use
put
something
something
that-
in that's short-sighted or doesn't meet the
Right.
requirements and collapses and injures their personnel.
And then it becomes
Thank you, Mr.
our
Mayor.
charge.
Just curious why Reese came to Visa for that.
Reese put it in their operating budget, but
Oh, and
in order to stay within, their budget had to be cut significantly.
Okay,
And this is a one-time cost that we at least could extract from that.
got it.
and-
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep, so they didn't come to Visa, we opted that this be a possibility to fund it.
Okay.
Okay. And then the last one that we're putting in front of you is one-time training equipment. So this EMS training equipment, director may actually speak, even though he said he wouldn't. Is actually kind of in partnership with the newly formed fire department, paid fire department. So it's training equipment, so it's SimMan and SimBaby. So those are actual, you may think of them as like the Resusci kind of thing, but they're more technical, far more elaborate. We also have an infant, which we already have. We got that through a grant process, as well as iStimulate products that they're looking to procure. It will allow for us to continue high-quality training, but to own it within our organization. That training would be provided not only to the existing EMTs and paramedics and the new ones, but also to those who would be entering through the paid fire service, and would be utilized at the training academy for all of those. If we aren't able to acquire this, we'll continue to have some responsibility or some burden to procure that training using other organizations, whether it's the college or other places.
So this is like, you practice medical procedures or something on?
Yes,
on
these-
this thing, right?
These are actually referred
Whoa,
to,
Who's that guy?
these are called human patient simulators, and they're actually realistic and will simulate everything an infant or an adult will do. They can wheeze, they can vomit, they can even defecate. They have realistic breath sounds, heart sounds, so they're used to accommodate patient simulations with real-time, realistic, and it prevents us from going to a clinical site, which would necessitate us doing legal agreements and clinical agreements and insurance and everything else. This way we can do everything we would do in a setting like a hospital, but we can actually do it in the confines of the training center.
And no biohazards.
And no biohazards, it's all simulated.
It is the same equipment that is used in, whether you want to talk about Hopkins or, wherever for training nurses, doctors, and other medical practitioners. yes.
The college has a tremendous tool out there now that they can actually, it eliminated them from having to go to the morgue, where they can do, right on the board, that kind of work and identify diseases and I couldn't, I stood there with my mouth open the whole time. It was unbelievable. And the patient actually looks as if it's alive. It's crazy. So, anyway,
Pretty
good
cool
stuff.
place.
Say, lucky you were
No,
in
no,
the
not in the
morgue.
morgue, at the college. Although that's happened. Just saying. Okay.
So this 119 is based on actual quotes for the products that I defined.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah. One disclaimer that I'll make, and I did get a phone call. I may have mistakenly said that Mr. Fogel was involved in starting that program. He was involved in continuing the program. The start of the program was actually your dad, who
And-
started that, and Lenny Yox, and who was the third one?
Craig
Bruce?
Austin.
Craig Austin, yeah.
Yep.
That EST program. So that's been a couple years ago. Two,
Uh,
three.
Early 90s, or late, yeah, early
30.
90s, I think, 92, 93 maybe.
So,
When you were still in school, right?
No, he was not.
Easy now.
I wasn't, so you.
did he ask you the question or me?
I will get
lost
the answer
track.
later. Thank you all.
Okay.
for
Thank
your
you
time
again,
today.
gentlemen.
Okay. We're getting into another one of our departments, HR.
No, I think so.
We don't have any.
We didn't get any handouts from HR, did we?
You did not.
Does that mean there's no issues?
Is there a reason why we?
You just have to
didn't,
sit and listen to me. How
Motion
about
to
that?
adjourn. What?
No, 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 no.
Well,
No. So good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Today, we're here before you not to discuss the funding issue in the HR budget, but as a representative for all county staff to offer our support for the $7.5 million recommendation to fund the outcomes of the Siegel study. Just a year ago, I wasn't here, but Robin sat here before you and had this conversation to just discuss our concerns about our ability to recruit and retain staff organization-wide. Today, we continue to have those same concerns, including our ability to continue to provide the current level of services to our citizens. Actually, let me change that. My concerns, as well as other directors, continues to grow. So that concern is growing. In FY21, we had 74 full-time staff leave county government. As of today, 60 people have left in FY22, and we still have 3 months to go in this fiscal year. And there are already 4 more in April. So we're closing in on 74 last year, look to be at least the same this year, if not more. We currently have 72 vacancies. That's about 11% of our full-time staff. The quantity and quality of our applications that we receive continue to be of concern, which has led to open till filled positions. Right now, 30 of our 72 vacancies that are posted are open till filled. 30, so closing in on half. We've never had anything remotely like this before as to what we're seeing now. Staff are continuing to accept positions with local municipalities, private business. They're not just leaving for other jurisdictions. Even with the increases that the board has graciously provided us, we continue to feel the pressure when trying to recruit and retain our staff. Just the other day, you had to approve contracting out inspection services, as we have 3 out of 5 construction inspector positions open, and they are open until filled. Now the new thing, we're seeing the same thing with contractual staff. For Piney Run Park summer programs, we advertised for 21 counselors. As of yesterday, we were able to hire 3. For our park assistants, we were looking for 7, able to hire 3. If we can't get these positions filled, we won't be able to run those programs. And I believe Jeff has mentioned that as well, because I think Commissioner Rothstein, you were going to talk about it in one of your town halls. For those employees who've decided to leave county government, we encourage them to participate in exit interviews. We want to know why. Those that participate note the main reason that they're leaving is salary, whether it's their current salary or their anticipated progression throughout their career. So in closing, we support the 7.5 million recommendation that Ted put in the budget as part of the FY23 budget process. And I think it's something we're going to really need to look at to be able to maintain staff in this organization and to recruit additional staff to this organization.
Okay. Is there any discussion? I'm not sure
No, I
where
mean,
this was going, so
Yeah.
I
just in support of.
Yep.
yeah, I got it. I mean, it's no new news, it's
No.
just challenging times that we have to
Correct.
all address. Is there any comment from anybody? So,
No, you're not gonna get any argument from us. I mean,
yeah, I mean, that's straight up.
Yeah, I may revisit the amount that was assigned to it, when we begin our
Deliberations.
our deliberations. But that's just me.
Yeah, no,
because-
I agree. There's no
because-
argument. I mean,
yeah.
everything you
Right.
said shows its validity.
Right.
So, yeah, okay, any comments?
If I may, Director Fox, I appreciate the public awareness factor in this, because I think the public is not fully aware of the challenge we have with keeping this institution employed. And the more we have directors come in front of the public and express that, the easier it will be for us to sell that within the budget to address these needs that we're faced with, so thank you.
Well, I sure hope we don't have to sell anything. I think what we have to do is recognize and do our best in
Yeah, it's,
putting
Thank
a
you very
budget.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah,
Have
it's
a
all
great
very
afternoon.
interesting. The great quit and the great retirement and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like the grade you can't hire.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
I saw a thing the other day that said a lot of those, or a percentage of those folks that are involved in the Great Quit are now involved in frantically trying to come back.
Yeah,
So we
Let's
need
hope
to.
so.
That's
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a sign of, we didn't know that the grass wasn't that green over
that's
there.
right.
Or,
So-
or they stayed home with their spouse too long, now they need to get out.
Well, I mean, I don't know what it is, but I think we're seeing a little bit of rebound, so that may help across the board too, so we'll see. You know,
Let's hope so.
No, I
Yeah.
appreciate
Thank you.
the time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, well, first off, tomorrow, as the sheriff said, is the academy graduation. Who is attending that, so I know?
Oh, yeah.
All of us.
Okay, okay. And then that's at 10 o'clock up at North Carroll High School. So on Monday, April 4th, Hampstead Volunteer Fire Company groundbreaking. I have Commissioner Frazier, Wance Weaver, and I attending at 11 o'clock. On Tuesday, we have work session at 09, and then work session at 1 p.m. So Tuesday, more work sessions. Wednesday evening, you have a planning commission?
Yeah.
Say your regular scheduled planning commission. Enjoy that. And then you have Commissioner Weaver will be attending ESAC
Correct.
on Wednesday
That should be it.
evening. Yeah. On Thursday morning, we have open session and legislative update, subscription renewal for Cortico Health and Wellness from the Sheriff's Department, annual plan for fiscal year 2022, Carroll County Bureau of Housing and DCS, low-income household water assistance program from our comptroller, paving at Hoshua and Bear Branch, Mr. Deggets, lighting upgrades at Deer Park, again, Mr. Deggets, along with rental and service of portable toilets. Mr. Deggets. Mr. Hine will be talking about the Locust Wetlands Stormwater Management Facility. Ms. Frock will come back to us to talk about the executive search that is being conducted. Now, it's probably the executive search requirements, I would think, for the other two positions, is maybe what she's talking about. I don't know. So there's one search I know going on now, there's two that are going to be going on, and I believe it's gonna be going out for RFP. So I expect that's what that is the request to go out to RFP. Residential scrap tire drop-off event, Mr. Casquay will be talking. paving at the Ag Center, storm drain repair over at Wilda Drive, storm drain repair in various locations. We will then go into close for land acquisition. At 1 p.m., we will reconvene for budget work session. There will be an evening Battle of the Books over at the Montessori School of Westminster. Commissioner Frazier will be attending. On Friday, the 8th, 20town Business Breakfast, Commissioner Wance will be attending, and then he will be attending over Francis Scott Key that evening, Battle of the Books. On Saturday, Big Country Breakfast with Commissioner Boucher and Frazier attending at the Korean Tech Center. The McDaniel installation of the new president, Julia Jaskin, PhD, where Commissioner Frazier will be attending, and then he'll be attending the reception and dinner for the newly inducted or installed president over at McDaniel. I will be attending the Fort Meade Alliance Stars in Service Gala that evening at 7 p.m. And Commissioner Wance has the podcast on the 10th. Okay, there can't be two breakfasts.
No, that's gotta be a mistake on Monday.
Oh, shucks, I was looking
Okay,
for eating twice.
so Monday, there's no breakfast that we're aware of. On Tuesday, at 9 o'clock and at 1 p.m., we have work sessions scheduled. And then at 7 p.m., Carroll County 4-H Achievement Program, Commissioner Boucher and Frazier will be attending at the Ag Center inside the Medford building. I will be attending that evening at 7 p.m., the Ag Center, board meeting. On Wednesday, Crisis Intervention Training, Fire Safety Training Center. I'll be attending at 1:15 p.m., okay? And 4:30, the Adult Drug Treatment Court graduation. Commissioner Boucher, Frazier, and I will be attending, okay?
Yeah, I'll only be there for a short time because I have to go to the Board of Ed meeting at 5.
And Commissioner Frazier will be going to the Board of Ed meeting at 5 that day. Thursday, open session. We go right into budget work sessions at 9:15, and then 1 p.m., more budget work sessions. Friday, April 15th, we will be closed in observance of Good Friday along with Passover. I threw that in there. And Saturday, there's nothing scheduled except for unleavened bread for Passover. And Sunday, wishing everybody a very happy Easter. Commissioner Weaver and his Easter egg will give the podcast. Anything I missed? Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
Before you do that,
Oh,
structure for next Tuesday, Ted, business as usual when we begin, or you gonna give an overview? Do you want, our wishes? I mean, what's your thought?
Well, I will remind you all where we left things, give you any changes that have happened since we left things. We'll have some materials to hand out to you. We might want to talk about in what order you want to take up things, like somewhere along the way I mentioned that we often get to the end and somebody says, when are we going to talk about capital? So
Yeah.
you might want to
Right.
decide how you want to handle that. Other than that, I think it's what you're used to.
and then I apologize, all the work sessions will be done in the Reagan Room in 003, not up here at the dais.
Right.
So, okay.
Okay.
Anything further? I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion second. Any discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.